Shanae, Dwight now has 2 double-doubles off the bench already. Is this sustainable? What do you see going forward?
I absolutely think it's sustainable, and it's really interesting because we hear the Shaq comparisons, dominant post player wearing a Lakers uniform, and I think the comparison that most people make is the fact that we judge Shaq for his work off the court, but also on the court as well. We merge those two worlds together, and I think we do the same with Dwight. How serious is he about basketball? He's always been the showman. People compared him to Shaq in his personality, but now he has no choice but to have focus because he's on a non-guaranteed contract. That's one thing people forget. How often do we say that a future Hall of Famer is on a non-guaranteed contract? And what people don't realize is that he's been on 5 teams in 5 years. So what's the differentiating factor why he's having success? 1, he's coming off the bench. And 2, he's surrounded by veterans and proven winners, people that he is forced to respect. LeBron, even Rondo, championship pedigree, even Danny Green, championship pedigree. So if you look at Dwight, he has no choice but to play that role. And I'm glad that he has a purpose because I think a lot of people have questioned his purpose based on his personality, and we get that history from Shaq days.
Right, and number 3 would be necessity is the mother of invention, right? And look, I think it's absolutely sustainable. I agree with Shanae in this sense. If Dwight Howard is okay, getting 4 post-ups over a 6-game stretch, it's going to be fine. If my purpose, as he says, is I'm going to take ownership 20 minutes a night of one of the top-ranked defensive units in basketball. He has a 90 defensive rating right now. He's going to be just fine. I mean, he's always had the power to do this.
Yep.
I mean, and I agree with Shanae. I don't think it's a coincidence that the teammates in the surrounding principals.
I think that's really
that's the point.
Right.
Is on a young Atlanta team, on a young Charlotte team, Kemba and pretty much a couple vets. But I mean, necessity is the mother of invention, and I do think people are a product of their environment. And the environment this almost reminds me, remember LeBron when J.R. Smith came to town in Cleveland, and everyone said, well, how are you going to deal with a guy who's been, I've got this.
He's on his best behavior.
Right, LeBron's got this, right? And I think it does have a way of persuading people to sort of accept their role.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, this is a 3 times in a row Defensive Player of the Year. And the Lakers defense continuing to shine last night, keeping the Spurs under 40% shooting, blocking 10 shots, sitting atop the league in defensive rating this season. LeBron continuing to preach defense post-game. Take a listen to him.
I mean, defense that's our staple. We've been talking about it and we believe it. No matter how it's going for us offensively, if we're struggling to shoot the ball, if we're struggling, if we turn the ball over, whatever, we have to still continue to get stops, and we did that tonight, in a very hostile environment, an environment that's very tough to win in, I know from experience. So it's a very good win for us early in the season.
So Kevin, Frank Vogel came in from day 1 of training camp preaching defense. We know that he had great defenses in Indiana. But we heard the Lakers preaching defense at the beginning of last season, and they just didn't have the personnel to do it. Are you surprised they've been able to pull it off this season with the changes in personnel they've had?
I mean, yes and no in this sense. I mean, I think we all knew that the margin for the Lakers this season would be, is this going to be a LeBron Cleveland era defense where, hey, pay no attention to what you're seeing during the regular season because on April 12th we'll tune it up and we have the pieces? Or is this going to be a team that really actually takes advantage of some really good defensive personnel? Let us not forget, Anthony Davis is a top 5 individual versatile NBA defender. Danny Green is the best transition defender at guard, probably a top 5 at his position. Avery Bradley, analytics people will debate whether he's merely pretty good or great.
Which side of the Avery Bradley camp are you on?
At the very least, he's pretty good.
Yes.
Dwight Howard, as aforementioned, Defensive Player of the Year multiple times. They have a rim protector on the floor at all times. And when LeBron James is engaged, he is as versatile and determined and as smart a defender as there is. So I think they've had the personnel to do this. The question was, are we going to make it a cornerstone of our identity, or is it going to be wake us in April?
Yeah, and specifically on the floor, the Lakers defense is better, largely because they're bigger. When you're bigger and you have those helicopters in the paint, as you listed the guys, AD, Dwight, even LeBron, JaVale McGee in there protecting the rim, they're better, which allows those guards to be more aggressive on ball on the perimeter. The Lakers also have the #1 pick and roll defense in the NBA. And why is that? That's because when your guards are more aggressive on the perimeter and the help side's behind you, you're straight. I think the question here was okay, from the get-go, will the Lakers actually make defense their identity? And it seems like that's the culture that they're creating.
Well, there was a bunch of things that could have gone either way. right? So the Dwight Howard question, would he play ball offensively enough that you could keep him on the floor to use him the way you wanted to defensively? It's not just that he gets great blocks. We saw some highlights there. He's a smart defender.
Yep.
He knows where to be on the floor, and that he's been able to stay in the game and do that has been great for them. Avery Bradley, as you know, people argue over Avery Bradley as he's really good at some of his team defense stats, would put him in. I think Avery Bradley is a fit guy, right? We've seen him in a great fit in Boston, not so great fit in a couple other places. He clearly is fitting in well with this team. LeBron, clearly you can tell from those quotes there and some of the other things he said, he is relishing the fact that he is playing strong defense and showing people, he said, you're not going to be able to point me out on film. I do wonder with LeBron, is it smart for him to be playing such involved defense right now? What do you think, Kevin? Because he is turning 35 in December. They need him to be playing good defense in the playoffs. And I kept saying about him in these past couple seasons, guys, you can't have it both ways. You can't have him want him to exert himself during the regular season and be disappointed if he doesn't have enough left in the tank for the spring. Do you think that he can keep this up all season and be who he wants to be in the playoffs?
In this respect, I think there is a long spectrum between, hey, play every possession like you're Marcus Smart and be completely oblivious off the ball to the point of indifference. Right? Like you can actually play a pretty good brand of defense if by merely being attentive and smart and kind of making decent cost-benefit analysis decisions when you're off the ball.
Exactly.
And like he kind of hasn't really been doing that the last few years.
By having those helicopters in the paint, LeBron is playing the defense he wants to play, not that Patrick Beverley full court pressure defense. He's playing free safety, roaming, getting steals, and that's the best form of defense LeBron wants to play.
Absolutely, and keeps him fresh still for the time of year he cares about the most.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports analysis and highlights, download the ESPN app. And for live streaming and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.